So we are here talking to Herring, and we're going to talk to Herring about his experience fighting in Ukraine. So first of all, Herring, you can go way back. What's your background before coming to Ukraine?
My background before coming to Ukraine on the military side, I spent over a decade in the United States Army, between active duty and the Army Reserves, 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. And then later on transitioned into a weapons and tactics instructor at the military academy at West Point. And while in the reserves, my civilian career was being a commercial fisherman.
And I know as a fisherman, you had some experience with drones too before the war.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, we use them to spot out schools of fish, whale sign, if they're breaching, I'm getting in the distance. So they're very easy to see from elevation at surface level.
What made you come to Ukraine?
It's maybe not so interesting. So like for me, everything in the United States Army is kind of centered around that fight, and it always has been in my eyes, like the Russia-America fight to the point where something as nominal as your pop-up range targets are called green items. It's a little Russian conscript with a little steel pot helmet. I mean, so we've invested billions and trillions of dollars, not only weaponry but training to fight in a fight just exactly like this, but just aren't doing it. We're letting someone else do it with the same shit that we spent all that money on. So to me, there was no reason not to come. Just do a job.
Can you say more about that? So you said that the ultimate fight was U.S. and Russia the whole time. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I mean, if you date it back historically for America, it's at the end of World War II, Patton wanted to keep pushing and kick them while they're down, and we didn't do that. And then it transitioned into the Cold War, Cuban Missile Crisis, all that, leading up to for Ukraine uniquely, them exiting the Soviet Union after the collapse, and then America being one of the first countries to recognize their independence, and then helping them through that. And then it's almost like a continuation softly of like the push me pull me of the Cold War. And then I feel like even today, a lot of things that are happening now are a continuation of all that. It's just always been something that the United States military seems to focus on doctrine wise.
Do you think your training in the U.S. military served you well for what you do here?
Not always. It's kind of complicated. From like a standard doctrine perspective, to a point, yeah, like with certain skills and drills and stuff like that, absolutely. But the unique thing about this war is the scope of it. On one end you have hypersonic missile technology, unmanned aerial and sea vehicles, attacking warships, and for the flight side, attacking positions and refineries and stuff like that. And then at the very far end of it, you have the trench warfare. So it's like anything almost goes, So it's hard to say that you've been prepared or you have prepared, for something that changes almost on a monthly basis. I mean, this time, like today, last year, this war was a completely different war.
Yeah.
Totally different. And, 2 months from now, it could flip again. With the advent of mainstreaming FPV, that's changed so many things in and of itself for both sides.
Yeah, and so just to date this, we're speaking in August 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you say a bit about how has the war changed in the last year?
I can tell you that the winter of 2023 leading into the new year of 2024 was very similar in a lot of ways to 2022. You were still able to do assaults properly, and you know, unfortunately, these words work for both sides.
Yeah.
You didn't have the fear of a small 7-inch frame flying at you at 140 kilometers an hour, 3 kilograms of plastic explosives or directional charge. You know, it just wasn't a thing, and it was so rare. You know, the big thing was the Mavic drops. You know, so quite literally, this year has changed so much just with how FPVs are being implemented and the types of munitions that they're researching on both sides and putting to use and putting to practice. It's quite wild at times, and it will blunt an entire formation moving to doing this all. It absolutely will. Absolutely will.
So this is something I've heard from essentially everybody fighting right now, that the drone threat has changed everything. It's worse than ever. Is there any way to effectively combat drones?
Yeah, jamming, shotguns, and even, you know, even a capable person with a shotgun in their hands. I mean, if you're using, I would argue, birdshot, for example, against an FPV, the propellers tend to be a little bit tougher depending on the type of propeller. So you're better off just using buckshot. But if you don't have buckshot, you have birdshot. You may not be effective. You may not be. You don't know. And then now what we're seeing is the Russians have changed their frequency that they're flying on for FPV. So there's like some small adaptations over time that you need to roll with. And if you don't keep up with it, you know, in terms of research, you know, open source intelligence, what people are saying, contacting your buddies that are fighting in different areas, you will fall behind the information curve of it. You will do it. You will do it. I probably spend, when I can, 4 hours minimum at night just looking up, you know, what's going on. You know, what is Zala doing, you know, now on the Russian side of things? What kind of, you know, FPVs are they using? Because now what Russia's done is they've moved from using broad template metal print FPV frames to they actually have one called the Piranha, I believe, just off the top of my head. Piranha, it's a, you know, carbon composite mainstream FPV drone, widely used, you know, 3.5, 4 kilogram payload. And you know, when you get your hands on these things and you plug them into Beta Flight, which is the programming software for FPVs, you can see the differences in how they do things, how you do things, what they're using, what you're using, what you can do better, and also kind of get into the brain of it all, depending on what you're looking at.
Yeah, so you came into this with a pretty unique background because you've got a military background and then also worked with drones quite a bit before coming here. Did it feel like to you that had you ahead of the curve, or is it still learning experience for you too?
It sometimes it feels like you're at an advantage. Sometimes it feels like you don't know what the fuck's going on. I can tell you your own personal initiative and what you choose to do, you know, with the information will either make or break, you know, your time in this war. If you show up here and you think everything's just going to be fine, there's, you know, all I have to do is worry about getting to that objective. I hate to tell you, you know, tens of thousands of men have thought that way on both sides, and they're not here. So, you know, it's on you to take it serious. It's on you to learn and grow and adapt. And if you don't adapt, you probably a pretty good chance you're just going to die.
Yeah, so it sounds like to me, not just from you, but a comment was going, this is essentially a thinking man's war. Like this isn't just
No, we're playing chess. 100% we're playing chess. That's what's happening.
So I know there's a common thinking on people following the war that Russia has been incompetent in this war. They've been inept, that, you know, they're essentially they're not as strong of an army as what people thought they were.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think logistically early in the war, they performed poorly. I think they had an unreasonable expectation of the outcome of what did they say 3 days to Kyiv.
Mhm.
It's like, 3 years later.
800 now or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
800, 900, somewhere up there. I think for all militaries, it's incredibly hard to maintain a quality of training with volume.
Mhm.
I would argue that some of Russia's quote unquote best guys are no longer alive.
Mhm.
And what they're dealing with is taking new people into the military and giving them what they can and say, here you go. Whether they're mobilized, whether they join voluntarily. I think I have the understanding that the men and women who volunteer to join instead of being mobilized when they do their once yearly mobilizations have it a little bit better, but fuck knows. Really.
Yeah, it's tough to know.
No idea.
On this side, there's mobilization happening too.
Yeah,
in Ukraine.
absolutely.
What's been your experience fighting with Ukrainian soldiers?
Yeah, I really respect the shit out of them. I have since basically day one. You see the I had it almost made me and another couple guys like I wouldn't say emotional, but just like awestruck. It was I don't want to say he was elderly, but I want to say
older gentleman.
he looked to be a very nice older gentleman. I guess is a good way to put it. Carrying a deshka and a kolchivka, and I was like, "Fuck, you are hard," and yeah, it's quite awe inspiring. Some of the situations that these men and women are put into, and how they're able to, with sometimes, as much as I don't want to say it, limited training and limited resources, adapt to the situation and by and large come out on top.
So I know you're a team leader of a foreign team where everybody's coming from different countries. Are you with Ukrainians or are you guys completely separate for the most part?
A little bit of both. Yeah.
What's it like being a team leader when you have people coming in from every military background or no background and from so many different countries?
So what you have to do, everybody's got an opinion on something.
Yeah.
They truly do. The best that you can do is take what works best for the team and implement that as doctrine. And beyond that, what works for the individual, just leave it as shooter's preference. For on the ground tactics and stuff like that. I mean, obviously there's some things you just can't stray from. I mean, like shooting an in-law, shooting a panther pouch, shooting a panther pouch. If you're a sniper, there's only so many ways to do certain things. But when it comes to like nitty-gritty details, don't hold your rifle like that. It's like, whether you're at the high ready, low ready, running around the range, personally, I don't care. It's what works for you. That's just, you gotta let some little shit go, and you just have to accept that you're dealing with a multinational group, and like you said, we all have different backgrounds and different doctrines to a point. Gotta embrace it.
Yeah, and come in different languages isn't going to be
Oh yeah.
Have you been mostly with people with military backgrounds before, or
100% with military background?
Okay, so nobody even knew about
I can unequivocally say that every single man that's been on this team since 2022 has a military background and a specific criteria.
Yeah, and so let's talk a bit more about your team, because you've actually worked with, I'm just gonna say one, probably maybe my personal favorite team, because you were on a team with Turtle, with Kane, and you guys have worked with us for a long period of time. There's a high level of professionalism there. What does your team do in Ukraine? You could tell us a little bit.
We do a little bit of everything. We do CSAR a lot. Depending on who's on the ground, combat search and rescue. We do assaults. We like them. Hard to do nowadays, but we do look for it. Support, a lot of supporting roles, equipment-based niche specialty, you know, electronic warfare, FPV, drones of all variety, basically, just all encompassing drones. It's a requirement that everybody learns something to do with drones before they even come here. I won't go into like what and where, but you know, you have a pretty good understanding. Every man should be able to help you, you know, on that. Anti-tank, reconnaissance. I wouldn't label it as special forces. I know some people quite like to.
Lots of people like to say.
To be special.
Yeah.
We're special just in a different way.
Not gonna argue that. Not gonna argue,
So we try and play missions to our strengths, and not what we want people to think that we can do. And I think honesty with your partner forces is quite key. And that, you know, you don't want to necessarily oversell your ability and your strength, but you may gain the benefit for a little bit underselling, you know, what your potential is too.
I know we recently sent you a drone, and you guys have a drone now. Exciting stuff. But when we checked out first before sending it to you, the other teams that checked it out realized who it was going to, and they were like, "Oh, this is like the drone guy." That why do you think you have that reputation?
Well, there's an interesting. I won't say it about me personally. You can draw your own conclusions. A lot of times you'll find that the drone pilots nowadays have the most kills on a team. You know, despite other roles' best efforts. You know, Stinger guy's only going to get so many shots at that, but the drone thing's something that you can do 24 hours a day. You know, you are limited by your ability to stay awake and focus. That's it. There is nothing stopping you from getting out there, you know, flying 100 hours a week, you know, between two teams of 2 people for a total of 4 in the group. For me, I've always coming into the country, like that was like my role. So I got quite the name for that, especially in the Volodar area. I'm quite well known there by both sides. I think, whether I like it or not. But yeah, and also I've trained a lot of people, just you know, the basics, introduced them to it, you know, explained quite a bit about it. Regularly I will get phone calls, you know, about theory crafting and stuff like that, and you know, information sharing. So you just kind of end up, you know, in that circle and cycle.
So now that drones have essentially taken over this war, everybody is now trying to upskill and learn more about them. For people who are interested in helping Ukraine, either being a drone pilot or helping provide drones, build drones, anything like that, what advice would you have for them?
Like someone who just doesn't know anything, you know, never touched one.
Well, let's assume first of all, if we've got somebody who has flown drones before, maybe they're you know, kind of a freelance pilot in their free time. Is that helpful here? Yeah,
it's helpful. I mean, those are definitely the you know, the big target market for foreigners that are wanting to come here. You know, my biggest advice to them is it's just time spent. You know, whether it be on certain simulators, whether it be, you know, you just putting raw flying hours on your drone. I would encourage them to not be wasteful with the resource, but also not be a pussy. You know, like if the drone goes down, let it go. Let it go. If it means that you can take out, you know, a replacement group for a position, and you know, you think, no, this is it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It makes a difference.
What about in terms of providing drones? What are the drones that you guys need?
Oh man, Mavic 3s. That's always that will always be a workhorse, you know, again, unfortunately for both sides.
Mhm.
You know, it's not just something special we have and they just
Mhm.
don't. Yeah, Mavic 3s, thermal drones, wow,
Mhm.
those are so incredibly handy. You can really fuck up someone's night with a Mavic 3T or a Matrice 30T. 600 with a Zen Muse L1, you know, stuff like that. And just 6 to 10 inch, I would say, like 7 inch to 10 inch, probably more applicable. FPV drones, wildly useful.
Can you say more about the thermal drones? What are they? What is it that they're capable of that the other drones are not?
Yeah, so thermal drones, you know, just to start, they're a little bit more pricey. I'm sure you're very well aware of that.
Ghost in here or something.
I don't know, Buckwell.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more pricey, but you get a very nice with the Mavic 3 T. We'll just start there. You get, you know, a very capable platform that can carry a very, you know, robust payload for dropping. Day night use, you know, either or, if you will. And you can really spot something out with a thermal drone that even during the daytime you may you know, struggle to you know, see with all the foliage depending on the time of year, you know, and as winter comes, God help you if you get caught out at night driving a vehicle, you know, because it's not going to end well for you at all. So it really tips the scales in our favor, you know, being able to use such drones, you know, as opposed to even daytime drones. You know, there's entire groups out there dedicated just to night flying. That's all they do, all night long. And they are probably some of the most shockingly successful pilots in this world for, you know, combat flying, if you would like to call it that.
So the German guys in Ukraine, you guys have, I would say, a rep for maybe being the nerdy guys on the team.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I would like to say forward thinking. You know, forward thinking. Adaptive.
Creative solutions happening.
Yeah, dorks. You know, it's cool. It's cool.
I'm just going to talk a little bit more about your team. I know you guys. So you guys have been around since the start, essentially, as you know. That's rare now, right?
It is.
Yeah. Why is that rare?
What you mean? Why is it rare to have such a long lineage?
Yeah. I mean, most foreign teams have kind of come and gone.
It's a commitment issue for a lot of. I mean, I won't name names, but there's a lot of people that have invested time, effort, you know, individual money into this team. Yeah. And they really genuinely, it's like a child, you know, you gotta tend to nurture it. I would say also a lot of the guys that are older from this team have a lot of staying power in Ukraine, you know, commitment wise. They see the value in the work that's been done. I would say the other teams, I know a lot of them early on in the war were just brazenly put together and it sounded good, you know, on paper until they actually went to go do the thing and it was just horrendous. Very rare is it like that now. There's definitely a lot more thought and effort that goes into the planning and people are a little bit more cautious and you have to be. But you didn't so much in 2022, you know, due to Russian incompetence on the ground and their overestimation of their actual ability at that time. They've kind of caught up a little bit now. I'll say I still like the thing, you know, even though it's biased, you know, it's in our favor. Also, I think, and this isn't pointed at any specific group out there, Unrealistic expectations kill teams like this.
Yeah.
They really do, and they definitely kill individuals on teams
Mhm.
like this. I mean, you meet people who just want so bad to be special forces because they couldn't hack it in their host nation, and they try and create an environment like that, and it's just fucking miserable, and it doesn't work because you have an unrealistic expectation of what your team can actually do. It's like little man syndrome, but like in the military. Larping.
Yeah, I've learned to be anytime someone tells me they're special forces, I've learned to be cautious because usually the ones who actually are, they don't actually say that about themselves.
Yeah, and usually the ones that are just don't really need like a lot of help. They mostly have what they need.
Yeah.
I will tell anyone that this team is a reconnaissance team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that those would be the first things that I say about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're a small reconnaissance team. That's if you label this as anything else, you're full of shit, and you're selling people a falsehood. So that's what has killed a lot of these teams. It really has.
You mentioned that for those of you who are in it for the long haul, and people who've been fighting here for over 2 years now, what do you think you all have in common?
We're autistic.
I'm not going to dispute that because that's pretty common. Yeah,
a little bit silly. A little bit silly. I think, like for me, I'm a very competitive person. You'll find that people that stay here for a long time, they have quite a bit of that in them. You know, for one reason or another, and it may take different manifestations. But I think at the end of the day, the people who truly stay here, like the biggest thing is that they believe in what they're doing. Is just. And people who don't come here for the right reasons end up leaving in a very poor manner because they get found out. You know, it's you can't hide yourself in a small team forever. You can act like it for a while, but it'll come out, man.
What happens if not necessarily with your team, but just kind of in general, if you are with somebody where you realize that they don't have the competencies that you need, or maybe their behavior is causing problems, what happens then?
Well, before some specific rule changes, what I, Turtle, and other people would do is just simply get the fuck rid of them.
Yeah.
Now, depending on what you've done and what the problem is, it may not be like that. You know, not a harsh, heavy hand, but you know, we've had guys in the past that, you know, really good, really motivated, they do well, and you know, one day something happened on the ground and this war is just no longer for them.
Yeah.
You don't really take the same approach with them. You know, you're just like, and what you'll see is it becomes a little bit dangerous for them individually.
Yeah.
Mentally. So they'll keep trying at the same pace that they were before, and you just see it in them. You know, it's just coming up, the anxiety, the stress, the edginess, and they can't let it go. And you need to look at that person and be like, hey man, like, time's up, man.
Yeah, that's a tough, and I've seen that happen, unfortunately. You know, with quite a lot of people who were excellent sometimes, and everybody has a breaking point. Do you think that there's enough support for those people if they end up in that position?
If they seek it. If they seek it. So like, I'll just talk about myself for a minute. I don't drink. I found that drinking is like an incredibly horrific way to deal with your problems, especially as like a man.
Yeah.
You know, for some reason you're meant to like just take this problem. Just never speak on it.
Yeah, never talk about it ever. Yeah.
We had in the past have, you know, had many a roundtable discussion. Not like in a critiquing way, but like in a healthy, like, man, that really fucking sucked. You know, I wish this and this would be different. You know, like if you just simply talk about your problems, for me, I find that it really alleviates some of the edge. And I pursue that actively.
Yeah.
you know, not like, oh my God, it's so terrible, I will die. But like, you know, just being like, yeah, that bothered me about that.
Yeah, I think you're right. The difficulty is that usually a lot of people try and refer their friends for assistance, but very rarely is somebody saying about themselves, I'm not doing so well.
Yeah.
Time to talk about it or take a break.
Yeah. And also I think a lot of people miss just on the friends thing, they don't really have good friends. Their friends are like, oh, you can do it, you know, you can, just keep going.
I've definitely seen that in Ukraine. Sometimes, you know, encounter somebody who maybe is struggling or their behavior has changed, but people say, oh, but they're helping Ukraine, we need them. And
yeah, sure, of course. But you know, there is a point where people break.
Yeah.
I haven't found my point yet. Maybe one day I will. I don't know. I don't know. Depends on you, and you don't really know. I will say artillery is a big one. And you just don't know how someone's going to react to artillery until there's no simulation for it.
Why is that?
I mean, you learn the sounds, you know, high angle, low angle, direct angle, mortars versus artillery, grads, you know, versus other things, you know, the quietness of an SPG before it lands. You just don't really know that that's coming. It's just, oh, bam, there you go. The problem is not that it's happening. It's when you have to sit in it, it seems, for like a multitude of hours, days, weeks, even. And you know, this kind of speaks to the Ukrainian fortitude that these men and women are able to sit in that position for so long, having this day in, day out, every hour of the day sometimes. And, you know, seemingly they're okay, you know, afterwards. I'm sure some guys it kind of gets to over time, but they'll have to deal with that when that bridge comes. And that's on them. But it can be intense. It really can be. And you're in that situation, you're just one lucky hit on your bunker away.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fuck all you can do about it. And often the worst decision is to get up and run. You know, I remind people of that when they're better off taking it. You know, put your air defense on, ride it out.
Do you think it's possible for people who have not been in combat or not been in combat here to actually understand what you guys have seen?
You know, I tell people I'm an accountant a lot, just so I don't have to, you know, it's easier to waffle on about an imaginary spreadsheet than it is to explain the nuances of like a mission here and this and that. Some try to understand. I'm just going to throw this out there. The Global War on Terrorism group that just kind of grew up in that era. Understand between fuck and all about something like this. They've seen a lot of combat, but they haven't seen a lot of war. There is a difference. There really is a difference.
What's the difference? Can you say more?
Oh fuck. I mean, you know, there's a difference between an entire platoon of yours unloading on a mountainside in Afghanistan because you took, you know, one pop shot, and then you and 4 other guys here sitting in a position getting shelled for 4 hours just trying to make it to the next position. You know, one's combat, one's like war. You know, like this is full blown fucking war you're in. They are not the same at all. And you know, it's like, oh yeah, well, this one time in Afghanistan, it's like, oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, I fucking have been cruise missile before. You know, I've sat under 240 millimeter mortar fire from the Tupac. You know, I've sat in a house as it's literally being shelled to smithereens by 152 artillery rounds. You have not done that. And it's not like I'm better than you, but there is a difference. There really is a difference. and it's not equal.
Mhm.
Now, I can't call an Apache gunship to fucking light up the position in front of me because I just received, some PKM fire through the tree line. If I'm gonna deal with that, I either have to deal with that myself, call a drone pilot, or fuck off. That's war here today. It's not the same. Not the same thing. And they come here thinking it is the same thing.
I've encountered a lot of people think, oh, I've been in war, and it's different. The other thing I've struggled because I've often needed advice on military matters, and I've learned that basically, unless you fought in Ukraine for a long period of time, whatever you have to say is not necessarily applicable over here.
No. Now, that's not to take credit away from things that people have done in other countries and other conflicts, but if you come here with that arrogance, it will serve you justice in the worst possible way.
Wanted to ask just a bit more about missions. So I know, actually, I'm gonna scratch and ask a different angle. So I know your team has been profiled a couple times in some big media. You were in the New Yorker. I think there's been recent businesses. There's been some bigger media to talk to. What's been your experience of talking to journalists?
I have to give credit to Luke Mogelson and David Gutenfelder. Great guys. I quite enjoyed spending time with them and all that. And I look forward to every now and then we write each other. They're great. I've had some really opposite experiences in my time. I won't name names.
You're not gonna name those.
I won't name names, but they're out there. And there's some really slippery snakes here. There really is. And I treat press, as suspect at best. And you'll find that's a very soldierly.
It is.
thing.
Oh yeah.
It's
you
not.
just mentioned journalists, and some people just start popping off.
They just gone vanish. Journalists are coming. Oh, that's crazy. I'll be back tomorrow. It's like it can almost be like that. And for good reason. For good reason. You have no idea what they're going to paint of you until it comes out. And I'll be honest with you, I can't fucking stand the fact checkers. They get shit wrong. You tell them what's wrong, and they just refuse to make the story almost better. I even in the New Yorker article, myself and a couple other guys mentioned, had some very inaccurate information. And if you're not going to change it, I guess it's not the worst article that's ever been written. But,
I've encountered that before too, and sometimes I've actually, reached out to journalists and said, hey, I know this person that you interviewed, and they actually were not on that team at the time. I'm talking to the rest of the team members now, and they're going to verify that they're not, and they don't retract in those kinds of cases.
And there, that's something that can be as well. Walter Mitty stories, they're out there.
And we'll see, one thing I think it's difficult because if you're not there, some of the things that you guys have actually been through are so crazy that it's like you kind of hear them and it's like, wow, that's definitely happened. And it's very hard to verify things for people who have not been here or really haven't been of like what sounds wrong versus what sounds right.
Oh, you're 100% right. Just I hope for the best if you tangle with them.
Just going back to talking about some missions now. So I know I want to touch the fact that you and Kane were on the same team, and so that's how we actually know each other too. Taking over after him. What's it like, kind of filling the shoes? Like, arguably one of the more famous guys who was here, well-loved guy.
Oh, I don't think I fill him as well as he did. And I think people would agree with that.
Maybe they can't be though.
I don't know one way or another. Maybe someone could, but persona wise and you know, personality wise, I don't think you could spar with that guy. You know, Lord knows I tried a couple times, but no, yeah, he's one of, you know, limited run, one of one. And you can't, and even a couple other guys before him, like you know, Dominic, another great New Zealand man.
Yeah.
You know, you could make a Bolden class of that man alone. You know, it's absolute wild man right there. And you know, I think you'd be foolish to try.
Yeah.
Really, truthfully.
Yeah, and I know your team has lost a few members, and
yeah,
people that everybody who knew them as their universe are just wonderful people.
Yeah, wonderful.
Not just great soldiers, but just wonderful
good men.
humans.
Good
men. What's it like to serve with people like that, and then they're gone?
Oh, it's fucking harsh. There's a lot of days that I wish I could talk to Kane and be like, how the fuck would you navigate those? I do not have the mental capacity. You know, it's what does that mean? You know, it's I'm not your toughest angel. Stop giving me your strongest. Toughest battles or whatever it is. Yeah, I have a lot of those. Sometimes I'll just say we don't have good days. We just have varying degrees of bad.
Yeah.
We have not so bad. You know, it's kind of bad and then really fucking bad. You know? I mean that, you know, that's a little more pessimistic view to take, but it does feel that way, and you just try your best. I think the best thing that you can do, and I know that this is something that most guys would say I do well at, is bring light to the darkness of matters. You know, if there's a problem, you know, that's somewhat shady in some way, like I will endeavor to expose whatever problem that is. And I will not be shy. To share it. You know, and just trying to be understanding. You know, I do quite struggle with that, but I am capable of hearing, you know, their side of things.
Yeah.
If it's from a constructive, you know, standpoint, not just, you know, something else more nefarious. But yeah, I also don't believe in regimenting things to the point where, you know, it's almost like you're trapped. That guys are trapped, and this is also something I think quite a lot of them would say is that they've been more than afforded enough rope to hang themselves. Sometimes it happens, a lot of times it doesn't. And just really, you know, taking care of people in ways like if there's a need for something, you know, don't fuck about it. I mean, even if it's something as stupid as a group moved out of our building, they took the fucking washing machine. The next day we had a washer dryer combo, probably the only one on the block, and they love it to death. They were very fancy. Very fancy. You know, making sure the fucking air conditioning works, you know, just shit like that. You know, if it's 2 a.m. and the toilet's broke, I'll fix it. You know, stuff like that. But you can really just try and do the best that you know how to do, and if it fails, it fails. You know, I'm not perfect.
One thing you are always doing is finding cats and dogs and other random animals. Eventually, you want to tell us about those?
They're just. I'll say what I said before. They're just sweet little babies that are just looking for a good home. All of them, every single one of them. Yeah, I believe in doing little stuff like that. You know, another guy that was on the team recently, and another great example of, you know, I don't know if you call it selfless service, but like just general kindness. Driving from a range we'd never been to before, driving through some neighborhood, seeing 3 puppies in the middle of the, you know, frozen winter, and you just pick them up. You know, you take them back to the base and take care of them until, you know.
I remember that because I helped you guys find the shelter for the puppies.
Like, didn't have to do that. but we did,
Mhm.
you know, because I wouldn't like to be sitting out there
Yeah.
as a baby,
Mhm.
you know, just freezing to death.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest with you, I believe the compassion for animals is a very high human quality, and you'd be surprised at people who don't have that,
Yeah.
how well they won't fit into our group.
Mm.
Because the story, I mean, shit, if
Mhm.
you would have came to our house, you know, when Turtle was a team leader, and even just before that,
Mhm.
we're talking. At one point, we had 5 cats. Blondie had 11 puppies. You
It
know,
was like a
first
zoo for a while.
litter, and then yeah. So it's, you know, this is not new. And to be honest with you, there's something to be said if you've had a hard day and you got this cute little puppy
Yeah.
kicking around, and you're just kind of like right now. I got Miss Peaches
Mhm.
sitting in my bed at home waiting to get some snuggles.
Oh. And Lady Potato, the kitten,
Lady
too,
Potato.
which is not here. I was
Yeah.
hoping we'll be here for the interview, but it's not
She's
here.
on a walk.
Yeah. I'm just gonna end this here with one final question, a couple final questions in this. Will you be here till the end of the war?
I came here when I was 29. I'm 32 now. Okay. I guess this time next year I'll be 33, so
Yeah.
it's possible.
We're all getting older.
Yeah.
And then the final one, just if people do want to support you or your team, what you do in Ukraine, what can they do to do that?
Well, we do have a team PayPal,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Generally, I only ask for things that we truly need, because there is a greater need of other groups, and there's a multitude of other groups that, you know, may not be as well off at this point in the war. They may be even new or something like this.
Yeah.
Mainly, I would advocate that they donate to a verified and bona fide group such as yourself and like a handful of others. But other than that, I mean, yeah, that's how I'd recommend that they do it.
Okay, that was really fascinating conversation. Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, absolutely.